22nd of January 2009. What her tears have seen. I crossed the threshold of my house, Almina, facing Gaza's city port, after several days' absence. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The gas tank was still anorexic. Feeding it is too expensive, and the power had been cut off by a perfect stranger's pliers. The pleasant panorama that had once been outside my window has changed and no longer raises my spirits from the miseries of living under siege. To the contrary, it now rubs salt in the wound, a trauma that won't heal with its reminders of a massacre. 20 metres from my front door, where the fire station once stood, a huge crater now gapes wide for children to mess around in, as if to exercise its horror for their parents. The afternoon call to prayer no longer has the same comforting quality of the Muslim's chant that I had grown accustomed to. I wonder where he's gone to, and if he has managed to survive at the top of one of the few minarets still left intact. The last time I listened to him, this anonymous muezzin had to interrupt his solemnly chanted call to prayer because of a chesty cough. It's an affliction I'm familiar with myself, as the gases of the bombing in Gaza have spared no one. I found a note at the foot of the French window looking onto my small balcony, as if it had been put there by a friend. The street and garden were littered with these same leaflets. They had been dropped by Israeli airplanes, warning the Palestinians to stay alert and be aware that the walls had ears and eyes. At the slightest threatening action against Israel, we'll be back to invade the Gaza Strip again. What you've seen these days is nothing compared to what awaits you. Some kids in the street had picked up the leaflets and folded them into paper airplanes, seemingly sending the message back to its destination. Over the phone, Ahmed told me about the new kids' game. Until a few days ago, they amused themselves by relighting the fires, simply kicking the fragments of white phosphorus bombs found scattered all over the strip. The debris left by these bombs has very long-lasting flammable properties. Even when picked up several days after their detonation, they can still catch fire if shaken about. The Al-Quds hospital paramedics speak of how they have given up trying to put out the fires provoked by these illegal bombs. Their flames seem to feed off the water being thrown at them. The consequences of all that's been thrown at us in these last 3 weeks will surface again in the near future, with new cancer cases and deformed babies. Munir, a doctor at Al-Shifa Hospital, told me. Even Gaza's neighbours seem to be worrying about this massive use of weapons forbidden by all international conventions. In Sderot and likewise in Ashkelon, Israeli citizens have formally asked their government for clarification regarding the weapons that have been used to torment us. It's obvious that impoverished uranium and white phosphorus scattered in such a criminal manner all over the tiny patch of land that is Gaza won't discriminate between Jews and Muslims when it comes to provoking genetic illnesses. The truce ought to have started by now, but today I was awoken in my bed by the deafening rumble of cannon fire from the warships, exactly like a few days ago. Some brave Palestinian fishermen had ventured from the port equipped with fishing nets on their tiny boats. The Israeli Navy pushed them back Nowadays, the only edible fish found in Gaza are the Egyptian cans of tuna that came through the tunnels months ago. East of Gaza City, 2 children were blown up when playing with an unexploded device. The witnesses we met spoke of active mines in front of the ruins of Tal Ihawa's houses. Some bomb disposal experts sent over by Hamas defused them, and judging by the care with which they loaded them onto an off-road vehicle, I think the Isa al-Din al-Qassam brigades might return those messages of death straight back to their lawful owners sometime soon. Looking for Na'ima's roof, the Israeli-Palestinian border, has never seemed so easy to pick out. On one side lie green hills, being constantly watered by the Israeli kibbutz. On the other you see the parching thirst of a land robbed of its water springs and herds. Na'ima wished to tell me all about her last few days. A tactile, oral and olfactory account of the massacre, considering that young Na'ima is blind. The soldiers' threatening ordered her fellow villagers to evacuate their homes only a few minutes before storming the place. The men loaded the younger children onto their shoulders and ran away along with their women. Na'ima chose to stay so as not to slow down their escape. She took refuge in her own home, believing herself to be safe, and welcomed her neighbours who had nowhere else to go. 3 women, an elderly lady, and a paralysed old man. Then the tanks and bulldozers came, spreading death and destruction, devouring acre upon acre, until they stopped in front of Na'ima's house. Standing on a small hill, the building she inhabits is the tallest in the village, and the Israeli soldiers who found that it was strategically positioned let themselves in and occupied it for 2 weeks. They came in and pointed their weapons at us, pushing us into a small room where they locked us up for 11 days, Na'ima said. During the entire time, they only brought us water to drink twice. Food came in the form of leftovers from the soldiers' rations. They never let us go to the bathroom, so we had to relieve ourselves in one corner of the room. They wouldn't let us talk among ourselves and would come in and beat us at night when, huddled in a circle, we tried to gather some strength from prayer. Sometimes they'd come over and, intimidating us by pressing their weapons against our napes, they demanded that we confess our alleged support for Hamas, insulting us when we wouldn't comply. At the end of the 11th day of imprisonment, the International Red Cross finally arrived and released the 6 prisoners from their jails. They didn't allow us to pick anything up, not even my sunglasses, Na'ima related, bringing her story to a close, adding that when she and her neighbours returned to their homes, they discovered the thievery carried out by the soldiers. They had taken all their gold trinkets and hidden savings after having destroyed the few possessions: 2 TV sets, a radio, a fridge, and the solar panels on the roof. I saw tears in this woman's eyes, hidden by her dark glasses. They seemed the most vivid I have ever seen. In actual fact, what Na'ima saw is a lot more than any young woman her age will ever get a chance to see if she had the misfortune of being born in this tortured strip of land. Stay human.